Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Welcome, everyone, to our program today. It's about health and interesting things that you might want to know, so stay tuned. It's always good to know that there's people out there waiting to hear the program and joining in with us, and that's what we feel like when we're sitting here ready to talk to you. Isn't that right, Dave?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm actually very excited to be here with you guys and to spend some time with our listeners, too.
And Dave, in our advanced program, we talk just about every kind of subject there is, don't we?
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah, and we're glad to have Rebecca. Usually Rebecca, we just see her on the TV shows and everything. But now, today, she's coming to advanced class. And Rebecca, you don't mind being advanced now and then, do you?
No, of course I don't mind. I actually enjoy reading advanced once in a while because I feel like I learn new stuff as well. And I'm excited to talk about blood clots and
excited
binge.
About blood clots?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Don't get too excited because you might get a blood clot.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, but you know something? I'm definitely going to learn about blood clot prevention so I don't get a blood clot.
Oh, that's
Very
good.
very
That's what we should all think about.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're not talking about getting blood clots. We're talking about preventing them, aren't we?
Yes.
And what does it mean to prevent something?
Well, to prevent something just means that you want to keep it from happening.
So, yeah, that's what we want to keep from happening. Yeah. And we're going to get a few little facts here, but we'll also learn some good words and idioms. So whether you're a doctor or whether you're interested in medical subjects, there's some pretty good common words in here that we can learn.
Absolutely. And some of these words are words you're going to want to practice using on an everyday basis. And some of the words you may not necessarily use every day, but they're definitely good words for you to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, if we can just say one here, I really like the title of our article is Tackling Blood Clots and Binge Eating.
Right.
And we'll talk about those things, but I like this word tackling.
Tackling sounds like something you do in football or something. When you tackle people, you bring them down, right?
Right, exactly. That's where the word comes from. It's where you run into somebody and then take them down, right? But we also use it here to talk about just if we're going to be really getting into an issue to figure it out, then we can say we're going to tackle it.
Right.
Don't we often talk about tackling your problems? Mm-hmm. If you have problems, you can't put them on the shelf and forget them. You have to bring them out and you say, let's handle this problem. Let's tackle it. Let's get it done.
Or some people try to ignore their problems, and they do try to put them on the shelf. But as you're saying, Doris, you need to tackle your problems. Or sometimes I'll go in my room and see it's really messy, and be like, oh, I need to tackle my room. I need to clean up my room.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about tackling blood clots today, and tomorrow another subject, but it's still taking care of it and handling the subject and finding a way to control it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, and it says here under there that this is invaluable information for preventing blood clots. That's the first part. Mm-hmm. The rest part of it is for tomorrow. So for today, we're going to talk about invaluable information for preventing blood clots. That's going to be our subject today. Good?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
All right.
Yes, I'm definitely ready.
Okay. Well, now before you have to go to the hospital or anything comes up, remember that you have to be sure that you don't get a blood clot. And where is our lesson? What page is it today?
Well, we are going to be on page 16. So, friends, I hope you have your magazines open to page 16.
Okay, page 16. Read down through line 17. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right.
Tackling blood clots and binge eating. Invaluable information for preventing blood clots and understanding out-of-control eating. Heading to the hospital? Get better. Don't get a blood clot. Spending time in the hospital can be a challenge. And the last thing you need is another setback on your road to recovery. This is why it is so important to know that being in the hospital places you at increased risk for the development of a deadly blood clot. Each year, blood clots affect about 900,000 people in the United States, and about half of all blood clots occur during a hospital stay or within 3 months of a hospital stay or surgery. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Blood Clot Alliance advise that you have a blood clot prevention plan when headed to and home from the hospital.
Well, it says that spending time in the hospital can be a challenge. And in fact, most people I know don't really want to spend time in a hospital. I know I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, although sometimes I think it'd be kind of nice to just lie there in a bed and have people bring me a meal.
Oh.
But then it's like something has to happen for me to go to the hospital, and I probably wouldn't enjoy that very much. So.
No. Most people want to get out of the hospital. As soon as they can, they say, when can I go home? But they get pretty good care in the hospital usually.
I think the only person I know that enjoys his hospital stays is my dad.
Really?
A few months ago, he had to be in the hospital because he has a heart condition. And so they were doing some tests with his heart. And he was there for about a week. And he was living like a king. He was there doing the tests, and he got some good food. But I think he's a little unusual.
Very unusual, I think, because most people say, when can I get out,
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, like you're in prison. You can't leave. You've got to wait till they release you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But we can be thankful for the hospitals, and we have so many nurses and doctors that spend their whole life taking care. Let's thank them. Yeah.
Yes,
thank
thank
you very
you.
much.
Nurses
because they
and
take good
doctors.
care of us. So it's not because we don't like them. It's just the idea that you don't feel well and you're in the hospital. It's nothing to do with the nurses and the doctors, right?
For sure.
Oh, definitely not.
They're
I mean,
wonderful.
usually the reason why you're in the hospital is because there's a problem with you. And who wants to be sick or who wants to have a problem with them? Nobody, right?
Nobody does, yeah.
That's true. See, but when you're in the hospital, you want to get out as soon as you can, and sometimes you're just almost well, and then you have what we call a setback. Now, what is a setback?
A setback is just usually when things were going okay, but then something happens that kind of takes away some of that progress. Like you took you took 2 steps forward, and then you took 3 steps back. It's
So
like
you're not ready yet to go out. Yeah.
Right. A setback, right? You thought you
We
were
don't
getting
like
better.
setbacks in our business. Sometimes, your business is going well and you're making money, and then all of a sudden the economy's no good and you have a setback. And so setbacks are not good. They're going backwards, right?
Right. It can definitely feel like you're going backwards, especially after you've made a lot of progress and then something happens and you're like, oh.
You think it's okay, but it's not.
Yeah, then
Right.
it's not okay. It can be actually rather discouraging.
So that's a good word, but it has a bad meaning, right?
That's right.
So, okay, so you think you're all ready to get out here and you're on your way to recovery. You're not completely well, but you're on your road. You're on the way to recovery. And so you think, wow, I'm going home soon. But there's something that is important for you to know what happens there in the hospital.
Well, it's important to know that when you're in the hospital, you are at an increased risk for the development of a deadly blood clot.
That sounds serious.
Yeah.
The word deadly.
Yeah.
Really?
I actually didn't realize that blood clots could be as deadly as they are. I thought maybe it was just like, I don't know, you just shake it out or something. I knew that they were bad, but I didn't know they could be so fatal.
Yeah, they're pretty serious. And then you never know when there's blood clot. But that means the blood is all in one place. It's supposed to go back and forth. Yeah, 循环, we say in Chinese. It's supposed to keep going around in your body, but it gets stuck in one place. And then what happens is that if it breaks off a little piece, that goes up to your heart and it kills you, see?
Yeah,
So the clots, when they break up, That's a big problem. And so if you see people lying in the hospital bed and their legs are swollen, then you know that their blood is not going like it should.
And that could be it is a very serious situation.
Right.
And as our lesson says, it could be deadly. And if something is deadly, that means that it actually could lead to death.
Well, and you didn't realize until I read this how many people, it says, how many people are affected by this in the United States every year. How many?
900,000 people in the U.S. And the other crazy thing is that half of all of those blood clots occur during a hospital stay or within 3 months after you got out of the hospital. So it's really, there's...
Right.
I didn't realize it was such a widespread problem or that it was so unpredictable,
Right. I've seen people who got out of the hospital and they seem to be getting better, and all of a sudden you get word that they didn't make it, that they died, and they said they had a blood clot. They seemed to be getting better, but the blood was not flowing right. So they had a blood clot, went to their heart, and then they passed away. So you have an increased risk when you're staying in the hospital. That seems really strange, doesn't it?
It does seem a little bit strange considering you're going to the hospital to get better, right? You have nurses taking care of you and doctors taking care of you, and then you develop a blood clot. It does seem a little bit strange. And this is a statistic I wasn't familiar with. I had not heard that before.
But don't stop reading now, because if you do, you say, I'm never going to a hospital. Look at what No, that's just the beginning. There is an answer coming up. There is a solution. So don't stop now.
Yeah, don't stop now. We're going to get into how, some ways that you can put together like a blood clot prevention plan. There's actually a group called the Center for Disease Control and the Disease Control and Prevention and the National Blood Clot Alliance, which they've put together kind of like some prevention ideas that can help you prepare.
So that's really what's good. You need to get advice on blood clot prevention. You have to have a plan when you're going to the hospital or when you're coming home from the hospital.
That's right. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, a prevention plan is basically just taking the necessary steps to do all that you can do to make sure something does not happen so that you don't get a blood clot.
Now, when your father was in the hospital for a week, did he worry about blood clots or not?
He didn't. No. He didn't worry about
didn't
blood
think
clots.
About it, huh?
He did. I don't even think he thought about it. He never mentioned to me anything about blood clots.
So maybe what he had didn't affect it. It depends on what kind of operation you have.
It does.
Because some operations, they have to cut your veins and tie them back together or something. And they stop the flow for a while. And
right.
So that makes a difference.
Well, when my dad was in the hospital, he didn't actually have surgery.
Yeah, so that makes a difference.
He was purely there for testing to find a
different
medication for his heart. Yeah,
right.
So it does make a difference.
Well, that's good. Yeah. But, prevention is much better than, like, whatever it is. We don't want to get sick, so we try to prevent getting some of these diseases that are going around. And we can work on prevention, but maybe we don't know how. So that's why we want to remind everybody in this lesson today.
Yeah. So I'm actually really looking forward to kind of taking this kind of maybe nasty, scary subject and having a positive spin to it, where we can be talking about like, okay, well, this is a problem, but it's not the end. Don't panic. Here's how you can prevent it happening.
So we can hardly wait for this next section.
Oh, right. Definitely cannot wait. Because, sometimes things are scary until you know what to do about it.
Right.
And then as soon as you know what to do about it, a scary subject becomes not so scary.
So you better be sure and read this next section, because it says your blood clot prevention plan. Are you ready to find out about that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's just read that to the bottom of the page here.
Your blood clot prevention plan. Before entering the hospital, discuss all of your risk factors with your doctor, including your personal and family history of blood clots. Ask if you will need prevention measures for blood clots while in the hospital. Ask your doctor what to do at home to prevent blood clots. Ask about the signs or symptoms of a blood clot and what to do if you experience them.
So these are some things that we have to have a plan about, and we'll find out more about that when we read on. But it says before you go to the hospital, or when you just get there even, you could ask the doctor when he says, how are you feeling? And you can say, doctor, what are the risk factors for me? And he'll say, do you have a history of that in your family? Well, yeah, that's true. Maybe I do. Oh, we better be careful.
Yeah. And that's something that you should always keep in mind is you should know what kind of diseases are in your family. Like in my family, on my mother's side, there's a history of type 2 diabetes, which is a type of diabetes, which is just a condition. So whenever I'm at the doctor in the future, that's something that I'm going to want to ask the doctor about, like, okay, what are my risk factors?
Right.
What are some things that I can be doing early on to prevent myself from getting this? It's the same with this.
Yes.
That's right. And I also do think it is important, once again, as a reminder, to discuss all the risk factors. Now, what's a risk factor? It's just something that you yourself could potentially be at risk of, something that could possibly affect you. That's a bad thing.
Well, and then you could ask your doctor, what can I do when I'm home, even after I go home again, even before you leave? You could say, what can I do to prevent one? And he'll tell you to be sure that your blood is flowing by doing certain things. But if you don't even talk about it, you won't know what to do. So it's better to know, don't you think?
Yeah. Knowledge really gives you a lot of... Well, I really like, Rebecca, I really like what you said earlier about how when you know about something, that makes something that was once very scary something that is not so scary.
Takes away the fear, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what knowledge does. It takes away fear, see?
Yeah.
When you have knowledge of English, you're not afraid to go abroad because you can speak to people. But when you have knowledge of something and know how to prevent it, then it takes away the fear. And fear is the biggest thing we fear.
I know sometimes people, we might find it scary to ask the doctor or even ask your family if there's any risk factors or any diseases that run in the family. And then if you find out about those diseases, it could be scary. But actually, that's not something you should be afraid of.
Right.
It's something
you have to tackle it.
Yeah, you have to tackle it. You have to be informed so that you can take the necessary steps to prevent whatever the disease is.
So if you want to prevent something, you have to say, well, how do I know if I have it? And we call that a symptom. And sometimes people, let's say they pass out or they faint. They said, well, maybe you have low blood pressure. Maybe you don't know what it is. But the symptoms are the things that show there's something wrong. And symptoms are very important. And what are you supposed to do about the symptoms?
Well, you should ask what the signs or symptoms of a blood clot are. And then you can find out what to do if you experience them. So that's kind of a step you can take, that after you're out of the hospital, you're at home, you start noticing some things about your body that are changing. I know what this is. Then you can get help sooner rather than later.
Because sometimes I think that people end up getting hurt or, developing these blood clots because they're not aware of the symptoms or the signs, and they don't know what to do about it. So it's all about being informed and educated.
So on page 16, at the second column is a very important section because it says the symptoms of a blood clot. Are you ready to hear what they are?
Yeah.
Let's read them.
Symptoms of a blood clot. Blood clots occur most often in the legs or arms, and symptoms include swelling, pain or tenderness, skin that may be warm to the touch, red or discolored. Blood clots in your legs or arms can travel to your lungs, which can be deadly. Symptoms of blood clots in your lungs include difficulty breathing, chest pain that worsens with a deep breath, coughing up blood, faster than normal or irregular heartbeat.
Okay, so now it's time for us to talk about symptoms of a blood clot. And this is very important because if you want to recognize whether or not you have a blood clot, you need to know the symptoms, right? So we know that blood clots occur most often in the legs or arms. And some of the symptoms include, what are they?
Swelling.
Whenever you see somebody, they're in the hospital and their legs seem really thick, so you know that they're have this thing. They might have a blood clot.
Right.
That's scary. Or if you're at home and that happens too.
Right.
Well, they do have pain sometimes too, don't they?
Yes. Well, the next symptom is pain or tenderness. Now, I just want to remind you all, just because there's a little bit of swelling somewhere does not mean that you have a blood clot.
True,
or
it's
just
true.
because you're experiencing a little bit of pain or tenderness in a particular area, that does not necessarily mean that there is a blood clot. There are some other symptoms that you want to look at as well.
That's
Right.
true, yeah.
Yeah, it might just mean that you bumped your knee on something. It doesn't mean you have a blood clot.
Right.
Right.
But, and just so we know, that word tenderness there, in this case, it just means that it's, like when you touch it, even like a soft touch, it kind of hurts. You know what I mean? It's not the same tenderness as like, kindness.
Sometimes
or
when you
something.
touch, your skin looks kind of red, or you could say discolored, kind of yellowish red or something like that. And you say, wow, what's the matter with that? So if you have these blood clots in your legs, or especially in your arms and legs, what can happen then? How would you know you've got one, besides looking at it? What else?
Yeah.
Well, first it says the skin may be warm to the touch, red or discolored. But then something else really serious could happen. Blood clots in your legs or arms can travel to your lungs.
Yeah.
Which can be deadly. There's that word deadly again. And if something is deadly, that means it can kill you.
Right. So that's the thing, is when the blood clots travel to your lungs, it gets stuck there, you can't breathe.
Right.
And so you do have difficulty in breathing.
Yeah, you can experience difficulty in breathing, and that difficulty in breathing might also combine with chest pain. That is even worse when you take a deep breath, So maybe you can't really catch your breath because each time you try to breathe in deeply, it hurts.
That's really scary, but I think coughing up blood would even be scarier.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness, you're
Absolutely.
coughing up blood. There's something wrong down there because it's stopped. It can't go through.
Absolutely.
So when anybody's coughing up blood, that's a bad symptom. Isn't it?
Yeah, people are probably, they really need to get attention very fast. Also, if your heart rate is speeding up, and this isn't just like if you were exercising, this is just maybe you're just lying in bed, but you notice that even though you're not moving around, you have a faster than normal or irregular heartbeat. So maybe it's not beating with a rhythm, it's like off beat, then you should
Okay.
definitely get help.
These things kind of sound scary, but still we have to notice them because these are symptoms. But, when you're going to leave the hospital, they try to check up, and all the nurses come and check all that. But what about when you're returning home? Let's do the last paragraph.
Returning home. When released from the hospital and you return home, follow all instructions and take medications as prescribed. Get up and move around as often as possible. If confined to bed or unable to move, ask a family member or friend to help you move. Seek immediate medical attention if you experience the above symptoms.
Okay, so when returning home from the hospital, what do you do?
Well, when you've been released from the hospital, that means they said you can go. First thing you want to do is follow all the instructions and take the medications as prescribed.
Have you noticed when people leave the hospital, they have all these little bags with pills to take this so many times before meal, after meal, or with water, and all kinds of instructions, right?
Yeah. But it's important many times to follow those instructions because people sometimes they'll come out. I've had friends who've had maybe the flu or something, and then they'll take some medication for part of the medication, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm feeling better," and then they'll stop, and then it'll come back, right?
Yeah.
Like it's important to take all the medicine that you've been given because it can
As
help.
prescribed.
As prescribed,
The
yeah.
doctor says to do it that way.
That's right. So you better do it that way. And then our lesson says get up and move around as often as possible. So you don't want to just sit all day long or lay down all day long. You actually need to get up, move around, stretch your legs, stretch your arms. That will actually help to prevent blood clots.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you have trouble moving, have somebody help you get up and move around. But if you find that you really have any of those symptoms that you can hardly breathe and it hurts and all those kind of things, what should you do?
Well, you should definitely seek medical attention.
Yeah.
If
You
you
better
start
call a hospital.
Yes, you better call a hospital. So if you coughing up blood, or if there's chest pains, or if your heartbeat is abnormal, irregular, or if you're having difficulty breathing, you better call a hospital. Get some attention.
Because, most people, when they finally get home, they might say, oh, well, I'm going to be better. I don't want to bother. I don't want to go back to the hospital. But that's not very smart.
No, it's not. That can create an even bigger problem. And you got to think about your family too, like they want you to be
about
healthy.
other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think we don't want to burden other people. We think, oh, this isn't a big deal, really. It'll just go away. I don't want to burden anybody. But you know something? It'll be far more of a burden if there really is a serious problem. And then you die.
Yeah.
That's a big burden.
Yeah, you don't want to be somebody who's always just complaining. But on the other hand, when you have these symptoms, they are important. And you have to be sure you don't have a blood clot. So say, well, I better be sure and check this. And people don't mind helping you. You should just call on them, your family, and your friends to help.
Yeah. And like we like to say, better safe than sorry.
True that, yeah.
That's true. Well, and keep active and keep moving. Keep your blood going. But if you do have to have an operation, when there's any other problems, check it out and be sure that you don't get a blood clot. So I think this has been kind of an informative lesson, a reminder, don't you think so?
Yeah, it's actually been very helpful for me also. I didn't know a lot of these things. So
I think a lot of people, they don't think about it much.
Right, yeah.
But now we know, and we know it's important, see? So keep our veins clean and keep the blood flowing and things like that, and we'll have a better life. Now, there are some other things we have to tackle, but that's one of them. But tomorrow we're going to talk about another thing that people have a problem with. So today and tomorrow are things we tackle, physical things that might affect the way we live. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
So will you be back tomorrow?
I'll be back tomorrow.
And we'll tackle the next problem tomorrow.
Yep, bring it on.
So we'll see you then, everyone. And have a good day today and keep healthy.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.